A coffee stain on an executive desk changed 2 lives forever. By the time the office staff arrived that bright morning, the city's most respected CEO was standing silently in front of her own office window with tears in her eyes, while the single father who had quietly carried her home after she collapsed from exhaustion was already clearing trash from the company parking lot as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Everyone expected another public humiliation. Instead, they witnessed the beginning of a story that no one in that building would ever forget. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances can transform lives, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing community. Graham Foster had learned years earlier that survival rarely looked heroic. Since losing his wife to a sudden illness, every sunrise had become another promise he made to his 8-year-old daughter, Ivy, that everything would somehow be okay. He packed school lunches before dawn, braided her hair with clumsy determination after watching countless tutorial videos, rushed her to school, and then drove across town to the headquarters of one of the largest architectural firms in the state. His position wasn't glamorous. He handled facilities maintenance, fixed broken furniture, repaired lights, cleaned emergency spills, and quietly solved problems most people never noticed. Yet he carried himself with quiet dignity because he believed every honest job deserved respect. The company's president, Meredith Hale, was known throughout the business world as a fearless executive whose impossible standards had built an international reputation. Employees admired her intelligence but feared disappointing her. She seemed emotionally unreachable, always arriving first and leaving last. Few people knew that behind every flawless presentation and every confident decision stood a woman slowly collapsing under the unbearable pressure of carrying a company left to her by parents who had both died within the same year. She believed showing weakness would destroy everything they had built together. During one unusually demanding afternoon, after an endless series of meetings with investors, Meredith stumbled while leaving the conference room. She smiled politely and insisted she was simply tired. No one questioned her because everyone was too accustomed to pretending everything was fine. As the afternoon stretched on, employees quietly left for their families while Meredith remained in her office surrounded by untouched food, empty coffee cups, and towering stacks of reports. Graham had stayed behind to repair a broken water pipe on the executive floor. While gathering his tools, he noticed Meredith sitting alone with her head resting against her desk. At first he assumed she had fallen asleep. As he approached, he realized she was barely conscious. The smell of alcohol mixed with exhaustion lingered in the room. Hidden behind legal documents sat an almost empty bottle that revealed what months of unbearable pressure had finally done to someone who always appeared perfectly composed. He didn't judge her. He didn't take a photograph. He didn't tell anyone. He simply called the company physician, who quickly confirmed that Meredith was suffering from severe exhaustion combined with dehydration and alcohol. She would recover with rest but should not be left alone. Because Meredith insisted she did not want the board or the media involved, Graham quietly helped her into his truck during the late afternoon while the sunlight still flooded the streets. The drive was peaceful. Meredith drifted in and out of sleep, never fully aware of what was happening. Graham followed the emergency contact information stored in her phone and delivered her safely to her home, where the physician continued monitoring her condition. Before leaving, Graham cleaned the coffee stains from her jacket, placed a bottle of water beside her bed, wrote a simple note reminding her to eat something healthy, and quietly drove home before Ivy returned from school. The following morning, golden sunlight filled the company lobby as rumors spread through every department. Someone had noticed Meredith arriving without her usual confidence. Others whispered that Graham had been seen leaving the executive floor the previous afternoon. Most assumed another employee was about to lose a job. Graham ignored the whispers. He focused on replacing damaged ceiling panels. Around mid-morning, Meredith stepped into the maintenance area instead of calling Graham to her office. Every conversation stopped. People expected anger. Instead, Meredith carried a small paper bag containing fresh pastries and coffee. She looked directly at Graham with calm eyes that no longer hid behind pride. She remembered everything. She remembered waking up with clean clothes instead of embarrassment. She remembered the doctor's explanation. She remembered the handwritten note. Most of all, she remembered that someone had protected her dignity when exposing her weakness would have been easier. Without making a dramatic speech, she thanked Graham sincerely in front of everyone. She admitted she had reached a breaking point and confessed something few leaders ever dared admit. She had mistaken fear for strength. She had convinced herself that carrying every burden alone made her a better leader, when in reality it had only made her lonelier. The room fell completely silent. For the first time, employees saw not a powerful executive but a grieving daughter who had spent years hiding her pain. That single moment transformed the culture of the company. Meredith introduced wellness programs, encouraged employees to take mental health seriously, and insisted managers learn to recognize burnout before it became tragedy. Productivity surprisingly increased because people no longer worked from fear but from respect. Graham never asked for recognition. He continued fixing broken doors and replacing light bulbs with the same quiet humility. One afternoon, Meredith noticed a child's colorful drawing taped inside Graham's maintenance cart. It showed a smiling father holding hands with a little girl beneath a bright blue sky. The words, written in uneven handwriting, simply said that her dad fixed everything. Curious, Meredith learned about Ivy. She discovered Graham often skipped lunch to afford piano lessons because Ivy dreamed of becoming a musician. He secretly repaired neighbors' appliances during weekends for extra income, never complaining about how difficult life had become. Meredith found herself thinking about that drawing long after work ended. She had spent years surrounded by expensive artwork that impressed visitors but never moved her heart. Yet one crayon drawing carried more meaning than every painting hanging inside the executive offices. Weeks later, the company organized a family appreciation day in a nearby public garden under brilliant afternoon sunshine. Employees brought children, parents, grandparents, and friends. Ivy nervously performed a simple piano piece on a small outdoor stage. Halfway through the performance, she forgot several notes. The audience waited patiently. Instead of panicking, she smiled, took a deep breath, and started again from the beginning. She finished to overwhelming applause. Meredith realized she had spent years believing mistakes ended respect, while an 8-year-old child had just shown her that courage mattered far more than perfection. After the event, Meredith quietly established a scholarship program for employees' children pursuing music, art, science, or skilled trades. She insisted the program remain anonymous because she wanted families to feel supported rather than indebted. Months passed. Business magazines praised the company for becoming one of the healthiest workplaces in the region. Competitors tried copying its policies without understanding that the real transformation had begun with one ordinary act of compassion no policy manual could ever teach. One difficult afternoon, the board proposed eliminating maintenance positions to reduce costs through outsourcing. On paper, the numbers looked impressive. In reality, dozens of loyal workers would lose stable incomes. Meredith remembered who had carried her through her weakest day. She rejected the proposal immediately. She explained that companies were not built by spreadsheets alone. They survived because ordinary people chose integrity when nobody was watching. Some investors criticized her decision. A year later, employee retention reached record highs while profits exceeded every previous expectation. Kindness had become good business, but Meredith never confused the order of those events. Compassion had come first. Success had simply followed. Graham's life slowly changed too. Instead of constantly worrying about unexpected bills, he received a promotion overseeing facility operations across multiple buildings. The raise allowed Ivy to continue her music education without sacrifice. Yet Graham remained exactly the same man. He still greeted receptionists before executives. He still carried extra snacks in his truck for coworkers who skipped breakfast. He still believed the smallest acts often mattered most because those were the moments people remembered forever. Years later, Ivy performed at a community charity concert raising money for families facing medical hardship. As applause echoed across the bright afternoon venue, Graham stood quietly near the back, tears filling his eyes. Meredith watched from nearby. She realized something extraordinary. The strongest person she had ever known had never occupied the corner office. He had carried a toolbox. He had arrived before sunrise. He had chosen compassion over opportunity when no reward was guaranteed. Before we reach the end of this journey, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment telling us what you believe is the greatest act of kindness someone can offer another person during their weakest moment. The concert ended with children laughing across the sunlit park while families embraced one another. Graham looked at Ivy with quiet pride, grateful that despite every hardship, she had grown into someone who believed goodness was worth protecting. Meredith finally found peace not because her company became more successful, but because she no longer measured strength by how much pain she could hide. She measured it by how much hope she could give away. The woman who once believed vulnerability would destroy her discovered that honesty inspired loyalty. The father who expected nothing more than another ordinary workday reminded an entire company that true character is revealed when someone else's dignity rests completely in your hands. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember that the world is rarely changed by the loudest voices or the richest people. More often, it changes because one ordinary person quietly chooses compassion when nobody else is looking, and that single choice becomes the beginning of someone else's second chance.